Maurice Thornton, my guest today, Managing Director of Headcount.
My name is Maurice Thornton. I'm working here with the Headcount team, and we've been in business about 8 years at Zurich. We're focused strictly on the life sciences sector, kind of mid-level to senior level positions. I myself am actually Irish born, raised in Canada, where I finished my studies in toxicology. And I was a scientist for a little while. I was a sales guy for a little while, and sort of fell into recruitment about 15 years ago with Michael Page. After leaving Michael Page, I spent some time in-house in HR, talent acquisition. That was about 3 years before making the very odd choice to leave, a very large and successful biotech organization, Amgen, to take a little time out and travel the world with who is now my wife. That was about a year of our lives. And when I came back, I made the decision to start the company, and we haven't looked back since.
Fantastic. Well, I guess in hindsight, the year out with your now wife wasn't that crazy a decision, right?
No, God, no. I mean, we have one girl here who planned to travel to New Zealand for 6 months, I think, and now she works here instead. So I guess it was good for us.
Today's live session, we're focusing on how to win more retainers. It's something that's really positioned a bit as the holy grail of recruitment. A lot of people want to be bringing more retainers in. I think a lot of people don't understand fully retainers and how it works. People perhaps sometimes focus too much on it's money in the bank. And I know you, Maurice, you'll probably do more than 85% of your searches that you manage yourself are retained. And I thought it would be great to get you on and to go through this topic and have an exchange. What is a retainer?
Essentially what a retainer is receiving payment upfront for services that you will deliver. The typical structure within our industry is taking a certain percentage of a candidate's salary package and normally dividing that in three. So first payment is due upon signature of the agreement. So first payment is to just start working. Second payment is typically given or due upon the delivery of a qualified shortlist of candidates. And the last third is due when the candidate signs a contract of employment with the client.
I mean, what are really, in your opinion, what's the biggest benefits for recruiters, but not only recruiters, for clients as well in engaging in a retained search?
I think that there's obviously got to be a mutual benefit there. For a client, it's peace of mind. When we sign a retained search, the client can just take that part of work off his desk or her desk. I've often heard upon signing a retainer, it's like, okay, good, I'll just leave it with you, and I don't need to worry anymore. We've got people who are very busy. They've got, they're handling maybe 30 open roles, and they just know this one's going to take a disproportionate amount of their time. And they know that they can, everybody's got KPIs, including our clients. And, if I can deliver timely on 29 roles and hand one off to an agency to manage, my KPIs are going to look great in terms of my time to fill. Versus if I don't hand that off, that one search is going to drag all the others down with respect to the disproportionate amount of time it's going to take. So that's a benefit for the client. For us, obviously, it's commitment. I think that when you're working in recruitment, especially on kind of success or contingency basis, you're often competing with other agencies. I mean, we don't generally tend to do that. We usually work exclusive or max 2 agencies on a search. And, everybody who's worked in recruitment knows the old story of calling up a candidate and they say, oh, yeah, like 2 other people just called me about that job earlier today. When you're retained, you don't have to worry about that. You can take your time and you can do a qualitative job. It's not rush to try to be first. It's, let's take our time and be best, do the best that we can for our client.
So something as well that goes in there, because the question I've put there is what's the biggest benefit for recruiters and clients, but actually the candidates also benefit as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we tend to take more time in assessing the fit. We just had a call on a retained search this morning. And we got to the conclusion that this lady just doesn't fit. She agreed, we agreed. If I'm working contingency, I might try to sell it a little bit harder to just put something in front of my client and hope. Whereas here I can take my time to really assess. And for that candidate, it's probably not the right move at this time either. But I don't feel the pressure to try and make that happen.
But there's definitely an increased pressure in regards to what's expected from you compared to a contingent cert.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I've had sleepless nights, quite a few. I really try not to take my work home with me, but it's impossible. I have one going on right now. Luckily, we were able to deliver, but for a few weeks, it was looking really grim. And, I was getting nervous about that. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about, oh God, I got to deliver this. They paid me the money now. Now I got to do something. Yeah. And sometimes from, circumstances which are beyond your control, it's made very difficult. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. They just think, wow, okay, great, I signed this retainer. But then all the work is still to come. And actually the reward at the end, it's somehow a lot less. You've just received your last third of payment once you successfully sign that candidate. It's not as big of a let's say woohoo moment as when you placed that one. You didn't know if it was going to go in or not, and then bang, you receive that full fee all at once. And of course, that's usually very beneficial for your commission as well.
Yeah, it's a very different dynamic, I think, as a recruiter. And I guess it's not given as well that you want to take on every retainer potentially that you're faced with as well. I've worked for companies where they actually don't want to take on retained searches. You have a microscope put on you. There's a much bigger expectation in regards to reporting. And, I think there's often times where, and certainly searches where you wouldn't want to take something on.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely roles that we won't take on retained. And we do that for a couple of reasons. One is because either we don't know the client or we maybe don't want to commit to being able to deliver on something because we know how difficult it might be. Yeah. Secondly, we like to keep a mix because if a client comes to us who we know and we know well and we'd like to do a retained search with, we have the bandwidth to drop one of our contingent searches. We're not committed to that client. We'll simply call them up and say, look, we've got to prioritize our retained clients. And unfortunately, I won't be able to continue to look for candidates for you on this contingency search. There, I find it's beneficial to have a mix. We have to start turning down business. We looked at going exclusively retained, but that's a painful process. In some cases, well worth it. But it's sort of arriving at a place once you become completely retained and realizing maybe it's not actually what you wanted in the first place. So we do like to keep that mix.
Cool. So, I mean, tell us a bit more about how do you win retainers? As a company, as an individual, how do you go about winning a retainer?
Well, I mean, I'm going to say something that's probably not a secret. I mean, retainers come as a result of relationships, trust. When a client trusts you. I mean, if I have to pay for a service and the guy says, yeah, give me all your money up front, and I've just met him, of course, I'm a little wary of that and not necessarily keen to hand over a whole chunk of money right in the beginning for somebody I don't really know. We know our business very well. I think that the clients trust our knowledge in that. You also have to look at the typical sales objection handling process. You have to know the response every single time a client objects to giving you a retainer, why that's actually something that maybe they don't fully understand yet. So, I mean, as I said before, I was a sales guy in the past, and it's very clear that recruitment is a sales business. So it's part salesmanship, I'd say, but really the relationship, I think, is the most important thing. And now we have clients. I mean, I don't generally tend to go chasing business anymore. It generally comes in to me. And that's a result of a relationship. We worked together before. We did a great job. Why would they go somewhere else?
Yeah, relationship and reputation. And if you're delivering, then of course they're going to be keep on coming back to you, right?
I think that you need to also understand, and this is some advice I would give after being in HR, in-house, in talent acquisition. I had people calling me all day long trying to sell me retainers. None of them took the time to understand what my pain point actually was. A very simple question that I ask clients is, okay, good, we're doing maybe an intro call, maybe I've never dealt with before. In some cases, somebody new in talent acquisition, a new hiring manager, a long-term client for us. I'll typically say to them, what roles do you have the most trouble recruiting? And people don't ask that question enough. So I know then that, for us, There are certain roles which we know the clients can do them themselves. We don't even call. But when we see or we hear that they're recruiting somebody, for example, for us in regulatory affairs, these are a kind of scarce and special type of candidate, we definitely call up. We're pitching that. We understand what that pain point is for the client, and we're offering services there. The very hard to fill stuff is the stuff that you need to go after, or where your clients are extremely busy and time limited. You have to recognize that opportunity.
I think it's a really good point. Recruiters and companies and also hiring managers and HR need to understand what types of positions are actually positions that they should be doing on a retained basis. I think if there's a scarcity in candidates, for example, or there's a certain secrecy around the position, confidentiality that shouldn't go out, a great little workshop that recruiters and companies can do together with their consultants is literally almost like what we call here an abonnement. It's like a mobile phone. List down, contingency, exclusivity, and retained. Go through and write down what kinds of positions are relevant for contingent, for exclusive, for retained, to understand, should we even be discussing, and it helps you drive questions with your clients to qualify, okay, is this, is there an urgency? Maybe is another point, is there something where they really need that time dedicated? Because ultimately, often there's very pricing. It's just differently structured, right? It's not necessarily, some companies I think have maybe a slight increase in their fee when doing a retained search, but ultimately it's about the same price. It's just how the payment itself is structured. So, by understanding for the same amount of money, I can get a completely different service, a much better service, but you need to know when it's relevant, right?
Absolutely. I think that's key. Understand your client. It's the basics of sales. You listen before you talk. And you make sure you understand exactly what's going on before you try to sell something to somebody that they don't need.
Going on from that, there's something I'd be curious to know how you approach it. When we talk about new clients, you mentioned before, it's all about relationships, it's about the reputation. Yeah. That's really easy to do once you've proven yourself and you've done a great job in the past with the company. Now, you, Maurice, you're going to a new client. 85% of your business is retained. How are you going to win a retainer potentially with a new client? And can you?
Absolutely. This has been something that I think we've done very well. For us, the hard part is not being in the room, it's getting in the room. Once we're in the room, I think we have a pretty good success rate on selling our retained search services. But again, it's about understanding. In some cases, we don't know the client. Maybe we don't trust them as much as, we should. We don't know, are they dealing with multiple agencies on this? We've never worked with them before. We're not really 100% sure ourselves. It has to be, everyone has to be comfortable. But in some cases, you go in, you've obviously prepared well. You make your pitch, you handle the objections. And if you know that you can deliver on something like that, then I think a retainer is appropriate. And this is definitely something that we go in with. Once we understand that the retainer is the right way to go with this client, then that's what we're going in to pitch. And in some cases, it's painful, but then they might say, okay, well, we can't do the retained search, but how about contingency? And if you want to work with that client retained in the future, you need to walk away from that. Because if it's contingent once, it's going to always be contingent. Why would they restructure an agreement? In specific cases, that's definitely happened for us. But the promise of, I'll give you this one contingent, and maybe we can talk about a retainer in the future. I in very, very rare cases have I ever seen that work out. We have one client that promised us that 3 years ago. One of our consultants, she's still working with them contingent.
Yeah, it's tough. It's always about setting those expectations from the beginning, right? Yeah, it's like when you have those first calls with the clients, that first qualification. If you get away with just a few words, here's the salary, sorry, I don't have time to talk about it, that's how they're going to want to deal with you every time. If you push back and say, no, we really need, half an hour to go through this to discuss, that's what they're going to expect from you every time. Preparing for a pitch, what kind of things do you guys do?
So we know everything that we possibly can know. I've had some extremely awkward situations in my career where I've been in a room with people and I didn't know. And, I was talking about something, and then all of a sudden a client says, yes, but didn't you read the news this week? And all of a sudden what I was talking about was completely irrelevant. So you need to know all of that. So first off, I mean, for us, it's understanding the client, where they're based, where are they located, what's their technology, what products do they have on the market, are they listed, do they have a revenue stream, do they have a cash source? I mean, we have a lot of startup companies here in Zurich, which are ETH spin-offs. They're trying to develop medicines, but they could be very cash strapped. So it's, you can't sell a retainer to somebody who doesn't have money. So, understanding, of course, what their position is. Some massive pharmaceutical companies, of course, they've got money. You don't need to worry about it, but you need to understand where they're at in their journey. We're on, social media, LinkedIn a good bit, understand who the people are in the company, how they might relate into this position. I want to understand every reason why a retainer might make sense for them before I'm going in. And one of the major things is looking at what's happened in the news. We're reading newsletters every day, 2 or 3 different sources. So we have a pretty good sense on what's current in the industry. And whatever industry you're in, I think that if you show that knowledge to a client, you don't need to go bragging in a pitch, but if you can show a network of people that they might trust, and as well as a knowledge of the industry that is not common, I'll have to be honest. I mean, in many cases, I speak with recruiters within my network, and in some cases, I'm quite shocked about how little they know about the industry that they work in. And I think that you're going to rise to the top eventually. And it's not necessarily a quick win either. I mean, you might pitch once and you don't get it. But it's about consistency. It's about going back and saying, hey, it didn't work out last time. And you know what? Eventually, whoever they're working with, they're going to make a mistake. They're going to slip up. And that's when you have your opportunity. I mean, everybody slips up. I'd be lying to say if I never did. But I'm just waiting for the other guys to do that. So I get my opportunity to get in there.
I think you also, look, you're going to take some things away, right? You're going to have some learnings through the research that you would have done. It makes you better for every conversation you go into. I mean, I remember for a retained search that I did that spent a lot of time researching the different employees in the company. I went onto LinkedIn. I looked, okay, how long have they been in the company? Where were they before they entered into the company? How long have they been at the company? That actually I could put together a picture. So when I met the client, I presented their company to them from my perspective. But because I've done so much research and really understood what that meant then for the future person, maybe some challenges, some things that I really appreciated, maybe some other areas as well, it really positions you in a whole different way compared to turning up saying, we can do this, we can do that, right? Yeah.
No, 100% agree. I mean, if it's also, you can see where they like to hire from. That can already help you on your, we have, clients who are coming over from the US and they're launching in a particular therapeutic area. We know every single company that is going to be interesting for them to hire from. I think that's important. And also understanding, where they don't want to hire from. It's going to be key in terms of their decision-making about you as a partner.
Let's talk about creative retainers. The most creative retainer you've ever done.
I don't know. I drew a picture on the front of the proposal. No. So I had a client who had worked with other agencies in the past on a retained basis, and very recently, within that past year, had a few, let's say, awkward experiences. They did not get the service that they were expecting. And then I walked through the door, pitching about my retainer. And when I sat down and kind of listened to the guy, he was very hesitant. His boss was on him as well. Like, hey, why you're spending all this budget and we're not actually hiring people? What's the problem? So once I kind of understood what the hesitation was, I told him, all right, well, we'll do the retained search, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you an invoice for our retainer after we sign the proposal, but I'm going to waive it. If we can't deliver, I'm going to waive that. I'm going to refund your money. But I knew we could deliver this. And I knew he was hesitant because obviously, he hadn't seen results in the past. I knew we could. And I was so sure that we could that I said, I'll pay you back. If we cannot deliver, I'll pay you back. And the important thing here, it's not about the money. I mean, the way our clients' procurement works, it usually takes us 90 to 120 days to get paid anyway. So I wouldn't even have had the money. The issue is that he has made a mental commitment to me. So when other agencies call him, oh no, actually I've signed an agreement with a partner already, and it's him mentally. Then when I send him people, he's taking the time to look at them because he's committed. Money's not important. He's put his name on paper. He signed a document with me saying that we have an agreement, and I think that brings focus to your clients. It makes them really look at what you're bringing them. It's also, when I pay for something, I'm much more likely to look at it much more closely versus a free service.
You want to get your money's worth, so to speak, but it also comes back then to some things that you mentioned before about, taking searches or only taking searches where you can deliver. It absolutely doesn't make sense to take something that you don't believe that you can deliver on, or at least to set the expectations of it's an investment of time and it's an extremely challenging, position to try to recruit for, and that people are maybe aware that it might not bring as much as perhaps other searches would, right?
Yeah, that said, I love a challenge. We only really do hard to fill roles, but you are sometimes set up for failure, and those are the ones we want to avoid. We've got a current search right now, which when we first heard the requirements, I shivered a little bit, but it didn't mean we weren't going to take it on, because we know, there might only be, 4 people that can do that job with the conditions that the client's looking for, but we'll find the 4. And you know what? If all 4 don't want the role, then maybe we need to go back to the client and talk about their job description.
Let's talk about what advice you can give the recruiters out there, people watching, keen to win more retainers. What are the key bits of advice you can give over to them?
Well, this would be, I guess, more geared towards people who are starting out in recruitment, or maybe in their first 2-3 years. They're developing their network. They maybe don't have that trusting relationship, and they're on cold calls. They're trying to get clients to they're trying to get clients to agree, A, to work with them. And B, then a retainer. And one of the things that I'll say to you is that I think a lot of people are afraid to ask. And I think that's where it comes from. You call up your client, hey, Mr. Client, do you have a few minutes for me? And then, okay, can I work on the job, please? And then the client says, yeah, sure, send me some profiles. I don't have any time, bye. And they're ecstatic. Wow, hey, I can send profiles over here.
We've all been there.
Yeah, this guy doesn't know who you are. He doesn't remember your name, and then when you finally send the profiles, they say, well, who are you? What? Oh, no, we filled that role. Sorry, did I say that? No. So don't just be satisfied. People are afraid of the phone, generally, and they just want to get off it with a result that they can kind of call positive. It's always okay to ask, okay, hey, do you have 5 minutes? And you can get a lot done in 5 minutes. And once I understand at what stage they are, like oftentimes we usually won't call initially if we see a role open, because we know that every agency in the world is calling. We also know that that there are applicants still coming in. And having worked on the HR side, if I know I'm going to get applicants, why am I going to work with agencies? I might say, yeah, sure, send me some profiles, but my goal in-house is not to spend that budget when I can do it through an advertisement. So, but if you take 5 minutes with a client and you actually understand where they are, oh yeah, we posted this, we actually, we had some great candidates come in, we interviewed, and actually, we just lost our last candidate yesterday. So actually right now I'm at 0. So this is a buying signal right there. Yeah. And a lot of people would say, okay, great. So, can I send you some profiles? Okay, here's a few questions. What's the team like? What's your salary range look like? And then they get off the phone. For me, it's more like I'm going to ask those questions and then say, okay, great. I'm going to send you over our proposal. How does that sound? Good. I'm going to structure it as we always do. It would be a third up front, a third on shortlist, and a third for completion. I'd like you to have a read of it when you have a chance. Would it be okay if I give you a call back tomorrow? In a lot of cases, people won't say, no, don't send me that. They may object to a retainer immediately, and that's when the objection handling part begins. And people often say they've got 5 minutes, but they've usually got 15. And, the idea is in the Swiss market especially is not to push too hard. I think that's one thing that our friends from across the channel maybe don't quite understand, is that this market is built on trust, relationships, and delivery. And, selling, just, it gets annoying. You need to know when to back off. And, sending a proposal can't harm. And then you call back to discuss the proposal and they say, okay, you know what? No. All right, well, we can look at it again next time.
Yeah. But there's a difference between pushing, selling, and asking a question, right?
I'd say the number one reason why people don't get retainers is because they don't ask for them.
Yeah.
And that's been proven in sales. It's, you know, the question, why did you not buy it? You know, they've done this experiment over and over again. The person does a pitch. They say how great they are, or how great their product is. It's fantastic. Yeah. If you don't say, and how many will you be taking today? You know, or, you know, it's, can I send you that proposal right now? Great. What's your email address? Yeah, just making sure, got that confirmed. You'll have it within the hour. I'll talk to you tomorrow. What time is better, 10 or 2? You know, it's all very similar, but people generally, the question, they don't close, they don't ask. And that's where you can't get it if you don't ask for it.
What's the best or worst, or maybe you want to give us one of each, retainer you've ever had, and why?
Actually, one of the best was recently, not because of actually winning it, but what resulted from it. And you know, we actually had a request come in over our website, and it was a top 10 pharmaceutical company. You know, we'd never done business with, and we were invited down to their offices to pitch, and we were told there were 6 agencies pitching, but. You know, when you're in the room with that client, and I had somebody with me who was also very, very strong in terms of the way that they could sell. I mean, when we walked out, we looked at each other and said, if we don't get that, I don't know, I'm going to quit this business. And we got it. And, you know, after that, I mean, in that year, we did 7 retained searches for that client, 6 retained searches for that same client. But and it was, they didn't know how we would deliver. When we won that first one, you know, they were shooting in the dark. You know, you go on a feeling. They wanted to negotiate us down on price, and we said no. You know, this is our value, and you guys have selected us as the agency of your. And you know what? They didn't push back anymore. After that, they said, okay, let's go, and we stuck with that price point for those remaining 6 searches. And you know, that's nice because it's opening up a relationship. That's one of the best because it's return business. The worst is one, it sticks out to me. It's about 2 or 3 years ago. We had a longtime client, and HR got in touch with me and said, hey, there's this new hiring manager. You know, she'd like to work with an agency, and we've said you guys are great. Okay, good. And you know, I probably. You know, in hindsight, it's always perfect, right? You know, when I dealt with that client, I was kind of thinking, I don't know if I like her style. And sure enough, you know, we went away, we delivered our first shortlist about 4 weeks later, which she, you know, and we always will send a brief, you know, we'll say to the client, okay, we've had an intake call. Here's a document saying, you know, it's not a job description. Here's your job description, but here's everything else that we talked about. This is the parameters in which we're going to search. And, you know, that was confirmed, and we delivered candidates in those parameters, and all of a sudden they weren't right. And then we asked what was wrong with them. And then something we'd never heard of, you know, came up, and okay, so we went away again, another 4 weeks, another batch of candidates. Once again, they were way off. And then we started speaking to people who were, and, you know, it's a small world. So people were starting to ask who this hiring manager was, and we were giving the name, and we were not hearing great things. In the end, actually, we never completed that search. The hiring manager was fired, actually. So the position kind of, they were more focused on recruiting her position than the actual position we were on. So I guess it wasn't just us, but man, that one drove me crazy. You know, I could not understand the logic behind the thinking. But hey, you know, these things happen.
You live and learn.
Yep.
Maybe, Maurice, tell us what's next for you guys for Headcount. I see you've been growing recently.
Oddly enough, through COVID, we grew a little bit, which, you know, is nice. Next for us, well, space. You know, we need a little bit more space, so we're on the lookout for a new office. Seen quite a few, but nothing really matching what we're looking for at this point. Look forward to seeing more of us online. You know, we've hired a guy who's going to work on our presence. We've never been very good at marketing, so you know, our focus is doing our recruitment, and I think that, you know, you might see more of us out as soon as he gets up and rolling. So we're looking forward to see how that all works out, and you know, maybe we'll finally start to parallel you, Lee, and in terms of the amount that you might see my face online.
So I think it's a great direction to go in, more kind of content online, more videos, more face, because we're all missing that kind of personal touch and seeing our clients, seeing our candidates. And I think the more that we can be visual through those mediums, the more we can give people a feeling about who we are, the type of person, the type of company that you are. So I think that's becoming more and more important, especially during these times. If you can't physically get your face out there, do it digitally.
A lot of my face coming up.
There you go. Well, I look forward to seeing it. And thanks, Maurice, for taking the time today, joining me on this session. It was great to hear some tips and stories in regards to retainers. I hope you guys out there were able to pick up some good tips and tricks. And wishing you all the success in the future with the further growth.
Thanks a lot, Lee. Good fun.
We'll do it again for sure, right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Hey, have a great Friday, everyone, and a better weekend.
Bye, everyone.